also talk about a really common, really hot topic when it comes to the gym, and that is Smith machines. So when it comes to the Smith machine, a lot of you probably see this in the gym and you're like, that thing looks pretty easy to use, but is it really good to use? Is it really going to translate to doing weights with free weights or dumbbells? So a Smith machine in itself has a fixed plane of motion, okay? And this fixed plane of motion, when you're using the Smith machine, can cause some motor pattern issues, where if you're doing like a shoulder press on it, for example, and you're used to doing a shoulder press with a dumbbell where it can kind of move freely, you're literally forcing yourself to stay in a specific movement pattern that your body might be not able to get into. It might not be flexible enough to get into. And this could definitely cause some potential injury. On top of that, it takes out a lot of the stabilization muscles that are used when you are doing normal free weights like dumbbells or barbells. So that's a huge problem too, because a lot of times we're trying to work our stabilizing muscles, which is important for all the activities of daily living that we need to do, and can often get neglected tremendously when we're using that Smith machine. It is similar to doing a weight machine, so you would get likely some translation into the free weights, but the limiting factor, as I just discussed, will be those stabilizing muscles. So if those stabilizing muscles aren't getting worked, and when you're using that Smith machine, they really aren't getting worked that much at all, it's going to be much harder to transfer over strength than, of course, if you're just doing the normal free weight strength exercises, right? So an example of what this might look like is, just to give a kind of an analogy, is doing a leg press versus a squat. So on a leg press, there is basically no stabilization muscles, right? And there are some people who could easily squeak out 1,000 pounds on a leg press machine. And maybe when they're doing a back squat, they can only do like 200 pounds. There's no stabilization when it comes to that leg press. Also, the leverage is a little bit better. So sometimes these machines are putting you in better positions, which ultimately might not translate quite as well to free weight strength, but they do test your general strength altogether. So when it comes to the Smith machine, it can be good for exercise variation. Sometimes if you just want something a little bit different, I wouldn't try to do it all the time. Maybe you're nursing an injury where you can't back squat without, maybe your shoulder's busted, for example, and you can only hold onto the bar with one arm. That could be a great reason to use the Smith machine, because obviously you don't want to back squat holding onto the barbell with one arm on a free weight. That could be incredibly dangerous. If there's no other options of stuff to do, maybe like all the machines are taken and you just need to get your workout in. Again, at the end of the day, one day probably won't hurt you, but I would try to recommend avoiding it at all possible. I have 2 Smith machines in one of the gyms that I go to, and I have not used that thing in 3 to 5 years. We'll say probably like over the last 10 years, I've maybe used it like 3 times, and I work out year round, okay? So I don't use that thing very frequently at all. Hopefully this gave you some guidance. Go ahead and like that video if it helped you out on knowing if a Smith machine is good for you.